Welcome to 12-12-12, live from the Deer and Deer Hunting headquarters. I'm Dan Schmidt along with Brad Rux. Brad, I was wearing my lucky 12 jersey there this morning, but I took it off just for Deer Talk now.
Every one of my kids had them on this morning too as well. I did not wear one. So
you're saying I'm a kid then?
Yeah, absolutely. At least a better Packer fan than I am.
All right, well, welcome back, everybody. You know, we've been traveling a lot. Brad's been hunting, I've been hunting. It's been a great fall this year so far. I just got back from Iowa. And if you can believe it, first week of December, their gun season, we actually saw rutting activity. It was pretty awesome. Brad, I know that you're actually going to try to get out yet and do some late season bow hunting.
Yeah, absolutely. We were out this past weekend in Wisconsin. It was T-zone, which is antlerless only. And my 12-year-old was the hunter. We're actually trying to shoot something with a 10-point crossbow. And we saw that rutting activity just like you did. Unfortunately for us, it was one doe that was in heat, and she had at first 4 bucks. And by the end of the night, there were 7 of them.
That's pretty awesome.
He couldn't shoot her. She kept running around the blind, and the bucks were on her, and she would not stop. She kept coming back to the food plot, coming back, and we ended up letting her go. But I think late season, they're going to be hammering the food source. It's cold right now with snow on the ground.
It's cold right now. We have snow on the ground here, and that's the report right now. If you have any kind of turnips, any kind of even a rape blend or brassicas left over, anything, winter wheat, they're hitting ryegrass, they're hitting it right now.
Yeah, so we're actually over a radish field is what it was. And they actually devastated that since gun season, which was, what, 2 weeks away here in Wisconsin. That food pot, I would say, was 3/4 of the way eaten. So, I mean, they're absolutely just pounding that.
Another cool thing, you know, right now, okay, that's happening up here in the upper Midwest and the Midwest and the Northeast. But down south, all our friends down there, Alabama, Georgia, even Florida, they're getting ready for the rut, which is pretty cool. Wish I was heading down there right now, but we have a destination whitetail crew heading to South Carolina.
Yeah, next week.
Next week, it should be another great venue for another good show.
Yeah, they're hunting on the same spot where we were at Blackwater Creek with Terry Harris over there. It's a great location. Tons of whitetails early season. It'll be interesting to see because Jamie's going there, and he was there earlier in the season in August, and to see how skittish those deer are. Think about this, they've been rifle hunted. We were there
since August.
Yeah, around the 25th of August, and they've been rifle hunted the entire season, and he's going down there with a shotgun. So
it should be a great hunt. He's hunting with that new Savage 20 gauge. I got to hunt with it in Illinois. Man, is that thing a tack driver. I have never shot a 20 gauge that accurately in my life. It's that little Savage 220F. They just came out with it, bolt action, extraordinarily accurate. You know, you can basically shoot almost any slug through there, but we had some just awesome success in Illinois with that. Let's talk to everybody first. Today, we're going to have Bob Robb with us. We promised him last week. We had some technical difficulties. We're going to have Bob on today. If you've read Deer and Deer Hunting, you know Bob's name. Bob is one of the foremost bow hunters in North America. He's been doing this for longer than I've been in this industry, and I don't want to make Bob feel old. He just started really young. Bob, he's been everywhere. He's just about done everything. Bow hunting is his passion. He loves whitetail bow hunting. We're going to have Bob on with us in a few minutes. We're going to call him so we make sure we get him on the line. He's in Arizona. We're going to get a hold of him in a few minutes. I want to tell everybody about the giant sale that we have, though. The warehouse sale of the century. It started at midnight this morning. 80% off of all books at shopdeerhunting.com. If you're looking for Christmas gifts, get on there right now because you are not going to find better deals than this. Up to 80% off on all of, and we're talking Charlie Alzheimer's books, John Ozoga's books, the Lee and Tiffany book that just came out, Scott Lacey's book. We got to have a Stacey Harris cookbook in there. The Kill It, Grill It, you name it. Anything that we've produced, go on there and get it. And you're really going to have some great Christmas gifts. What I brought in today is I was asked to come up with top 5 gifts for less than 15 bucks. And I think we can do better than that because I'm going to show you, I think, 6 of them. This is my favorite. This is $13.99. It is our page-a-day whitetails calendar. And what I really like about this, and this was actually Brad and I's idea, we came up with this last year. You put that on your desk. I'm bad at this. Right there. Every day of the year, you have a color photo. Yeah. I'm looking over there. Sorry, man. Every day you rip it off. Great product. Page-a-day calendar. That's on Shop Deer. We have the Whitetail Behavior DVDs. We have those on sale. We have, that's only $12.99. Great DVD. It's the best one we've produced, I think. We have, and not to offend you guys that are doing this, we have Deer and Deer Hunting Season 7 Deer and Deer Hunting TV. That's only $13.99. The Guide to Better Bow Hunting. This is all Bob's work right here. You want to have Bob Robb's secrets. It's right here, $9.99 retail price. Stocking stuffer there. And, of course, less than $20. Get your subscription to Deer and Deer Hunting. We got some awesome articles. This is the brand new issue that just hit newsstands. We have a piece on slug gun hunting. We have a piece on how to hunt public land. Some really good stuff. But if you want to go a little bit better than that and get somebody a really cool gift, head on down to Dick's. Brad?
Yeah, basically, you can get 3 free issues of Deer and Deer Hunting if you purchase the Heart Attack arrows. We partnered with Carbon Express and Dick's, and it's a great arrow. It's exclusively available at Dick's. Inside, when you buy it, there's a little card. You just fill it in and send it to us, and you're going to get 3 free issues of Deer and Deer Hunting with the purchase of the arrows. I mean, it is a great deal. These arrows are going to fly great. They're going to recover quickly. I mean, it is a wonderful deal. We're actually going to give these away to whoever has the last question of the day. So there you go.
Somebody's going to get the last question of the day? No, I don't. I don't get to.
And I'm going to steal the card out so they don't get 3 free issues. So we're sending you one of the boxes without a card in.
Without a card, but you do get the free arrows. They're great arrows. I love them. Brad, let's talk about for a minute before we call Bob, because you're the trail camera expert. One thing that I was amazed. I put my Cuddy back out there 2 weeks ago, and I honestly didn't know because it's gotten so cold. It's been like 9 degrees in the morning on some of these mornings. Put fresh batteries in there. In weather like this, for the guys that are just experiencing this cold front, how long can you keep those batteries in there?
It all depends really on what camera you're using. Some of them are hard-on batteries. If your camera's already hard-on batteries, when you're out in the cold, it's going to be terrible on batteries.
Is it just because it's taking that many photos, or is it just because batteries are there?
It literally takes, because the cameras operate, literally some take more juice to turn on that camera and operate all the functions. And when it's cold, all those functions perform slower, but it's still sucking out the battery life all the while that is performing. Cuddy backs do well in the cold. The newer Moultries do well in the cold. Reconyx does well in the cold. If you really want to get by in the cold, buy the alkaline, not just regular alkaline batteries, buy the heavy duty batteries, the lithiums, and those things can go through almost anything. My Cuddy backs is one of my favorite cameras, as you know. We use them throughout the season. This time of year, what I like to do is put those Cuddy backs out on food sources, because you are going to get every buck that's been on your place. He's going to be living there. It gives you a great inventory of what's available, for late season here. But my personal opinion is if a buck made it through late season, I'm going to let him go. I don't care if he's a 150, because he's probably going to be
a big one next year.
He's going to be 160, 170 next year. And if they already made it through the firearm season, your odds of keeping him on your place are pretty good. Now, that didn't work out so well this past year for me. Last year, we were getting pictures of a mid-50s deer late in the season, and I was all excited about hunting them. I saw him in a bean field about a mile away from the house. Never got one image of that deer on my property. Never saw him personally, and my neighbors ended up killing him. He's probably a 180 class deer.
Wow,
giant. So, but I'd rather have somebody shoot a 180 than a 150. I mean, that's a buck for a lifetime, truly, for anybody.
That is a cool thing, and that's why I put my camera out there. I had some really cool photos of some deer right before gun season started. They kind of disappeared. I'm just wondering if they got killed. So I want to get that camera out there, see what made it through, and see what see what's still around, which is pretty cool. We had a couple other questions that didn't quite fit with what everybody was asking Bob, and one of the questions was, should I feed deer in the wintertime? We get this all the time. I always tell people, no, don't do it. It depends upon where you live. Number one, if it's legal to feed deer, where we live, it's not. A lot of states, it isn't. In some of the southern states, it is. If you're going to do it, you have to do it right. And what I would suggest is consulting with a local biologist or just your game warden and ask them what to do. But the worst thing you can do, especially in the snow belt states, is to put that feed out now and then take it away. Because a lot of guys admit it or not, a lot of guys would like to put food in front of their camera. And if you're doing that and it's legal to do it, you need to be providing that all winter long, because otherwise those deer are going to become accustomed to that. And then you take it away, and it's really going to be hard on them.
Well, not only that, I mean, you know this better than I do, but the enzymes that are in their stomach, once it gets used to a particular food source, when that food source switches, they can't digest that material anymore. So they can be eating other food. That's where, so many people feed them alfalfa up here, and that's one of the worst things you can
Worst thing you
possibly
can feed
feed them. You know, I have a little bit different opinion. If it's legal and I could feed them high protein and I could do it year
Absolutely.
round, I would feed them year round high protein. They're going to come out of the winter in better shape. You know, they're going to be healthier next spring. They're going to have bigger racks, bigger bodies, you know, bigger fawns. It's all going to relate.
We're legal. I 100% agree with you. I know they do it in Texas, and I hunted down there last year, saw firsthand. If they didn't do it, they would have lost that particular ranch. I was hunting 20,000 acres. They would have lost more than half of their deer. I agree with you. If you can do it legally, do it right and do it year round. And if you can afford it, it's expensive. But if you're putting out like shelled corn, my goodness, do not sit there and feed them a steady diet of shelled corn. Because like you said, if they get hay or something, they could starve with full stomachs.
Yeah.
Because their stomachs will actually change. We've run articles by John Ozoga on this in the magazine. It's a delicate science on how deer get through winter. So if you're going to do it, just do some research on it and do it right. That's one thing I'd like to mention. Another thing I think we should talk about is, you know, we're getting to the late season here. What would you change in your approach, Brad, heading into these last couple weeks?
You know, before when you're hunting the rut, I always hunt doe bedding areas basically, or transition areas in between two of those bedding areas. And now, I mean, I just hunt over food, and I go back to that early season type of pattern where the deer really don't bed that far away from that food source. So I don't hunt in the mornings. I mean, I typically only hunt in the afternoons because you know they're going to come to that food source. The colder it seems like they're going to come to earlier. Sometimes when a weather front moves in, you know, I try to, you know, if there's a hard snowstorm, I'm going to try to get out either before that or after that. This past weekend on Sunday, we actually sat through the weather storm, and when we sat through the snowstorm, I thought they were going to move a little bit earlier, and it ended up, it was just opposite. They moved really, really late that day. So, but that's the biggest thing for me. It becomes all about the food, and it becomes all, again, afternoon hunting for me.
Afternoon hunting, I agree with you. Now, if we're hunting down in Alabama or someplace
Different.
where the rut's going, I'd be out there in the morning. I'd be out there as long as I can be out there all day long if I can.
Too.
If I have the time to hunt, because I've experienced some, as you have too, fantastic morning hunts. The farther south you get, and those deer are still in some of those rutting behaviors.
I got to give a product to plug here. If you're hunting late season, I mean, and you know my favorite product, the heater bodysuit. If you're not familiar with it, it's kind of like a sleeping bag that you zip into. It holds all your body heat. It's insulated. It's windproof, water resistant. I mean, you could sit out there up here. I mean, I don't care if it's -10. I can go out there in my heater bodysuit and be comfortable while you're hunting it. And, you know, we never used it to really take them when we went to Alabama because we were so, oh, how cold. It's only 25
I'm a northern
degrees.
guy. I'm hunting.
And that chill gets you. I mean, I can guarantee you, if I hunt down in Alabama this January or later, I will have the heater bodysuit with me. I'm going to take it everywhere.
Never been as cold as my life, and I've hunted Saskatchewan, I've hunted Maine. I've never been as cold as in my life as I have been in hunting in Mississippi in December and Alabama in January. It's the humidity in the air combined with 30-degree temperatures. There's nothing you can do. But that being said, I think the heater bodysuit's worth its weight in gold.
Me too.
I've used them since '96 when they first came out with them. You know, it's something to get used to. It's not, you know, you have to get into it. You have to wear it. But if you wear it, you will not get cold. And you don't have to wear you don't have to wear the big heavy boots. You don't have to wear all the layers. It's the ticket for right now.
I don't think I've ever talked to anybody in the industry that's ever used one and said they didn't like it. I mean, once you're in one, you end up loving the dang thing.
But you have to be in it. I've met some guys who say, "Well, I used it." I said, "Were you in it?" "Well, no, I kept it around on my knees." No, you have to get in it.
And you got to have it zipped.
And then once you warm up, I keep my lunch in there.
Nice, there
it's
it
awesome.
is.
We have a picture of it. It looks bulky. It's not, you know, it isn't as bulky as it seems. The way they have that thing made, especially for bow hunting, the way those straps are on you, basically I just kind of spread my shoulders, and that zipper, it's quiet. It opens up, and I can shoot my bow out of it.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with you. If I'm going to be hunting now, I'm going to be wearing mine, that's for sure. Let's get on the phone with Bob, and we're going to talk late season bow hunting right now. And this is going to be brand new for me. I'm calling Bob from the studio, and he's coming to us from Arizona. Live.
Hopefully we get a hold of him today.
Hi, this is Bob Robb.
Bob, Rob, Dan Schmidt, how are you today?
Mr. Schmidt, nice to talk to you, sir.
We are so excited to have you on Deer Talk now, Bob. We've been talking you up. I hope you haven't been listening because you're probably getting sick of me, like, just going on and on about your greatness.
I'm ready to roll.
Well, everybody, welcome. Let's welcome Bob Robb. As I mentioned, Bob Robb is, I'm going to say, if he's not the foremost, he's one of the foremost guys who we just hung up on. Let's try this again. Is he there? Let's try it again.
Dan must have insulted him.
Ooh, I insulted him. He hung up on me. All right. Try it again. There we go.
We're going to call this show The Curse of Bob Robb. It seems like we were having trouble.
If we don't get him, we're in trouble. This is live. Do you call it TV? You call it podcast.
Huh.
Third time's a charm.
Interesting.
Third time's a charm. Let me pause a minute. Anyway.
Keep my fingers crossed.
There we go.
I hate telephones.
Okay, I am not complimenting you anymore.
I don't blame you. I
Welcome to the program, Bob.
Thank you, buddy. Glad to be here.
Thanks for joining us today. You know, we have tons and tons of questions that came in. Again, we have so many of your fans. They wrote in through Facebook. I had some guys write in through Twitter and gals, and just the Deer Talk Now platform. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to pepper you with as many questions until we wear you out. But before we do that, we want to find out how your fall went.
My fall was very good, actually. I drew an Arizona elk tag after 10 years and killed a big bull, and seems like every time I went deer hunting, I found a deer to shoot at. So I don't know why that doesn't happen every year. Does it happen to you that way?
No, it doesn't. And sometimes it happens to Brad, but not me.
It didn't happen to me this year. I couldn't find a deer to shoot.
You know, I'm not saying I killed all the deer I found, but I got a couple.
That's good.
You know, Bob, I know you started in the early 80s. Take the listeners just on a little journey of what you've done in the industry and some of the different species you've hunted.
Oh, well, I actually started full-time about 1978, I guess, out of college, and I ran a couple of weekly outdoor newspapers to start with, and from there I went to Peterson Publishing Company and worked for Peterson's Hunting for a while, and I was the, on the creation of, and I was the first editor of Peterson's Bowhunting magazine. And, but their offices were in L.A., and when I got tired of that mess, I quit my job and I moved to Nowhere, Alaska, and lived up there for 15 years, and did some guiding and hunting and all that kind of thing, and I live in beautiful Arizona now because I'm just tired of winter.
I don't blame you one bit. I remember just over the years of us talking, you've told me about why you lived in Alaska. Just maybe expand on that a little bit because I think it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, the Alaska thing was really interesting to me. It's just wild, wild country. It's nothing like it is here in the lower 48. There's no roads. It seemed like every time you go out, it's a survival situation, and there's cool things to hunt. Not whitetails, but in fact, it's one of the only places there aren't any whitetails. But we had Sitka black-tailed deer and caribou and brown bears and black bears and sheep and goats and moose and all that neat stuff. And you learn a lot about getting wet and being cold and packing meat. And there's a lot of equipment challenges. Being a bow hunter, where I lived, especially in Valdez, in the middle of nowhere, the closest pro shop to me was 350 miles away. So you have to learn how to build your own bows and take care of them and tune them and shoot them in cold weather and warm weather and wet weather and dry weather and all that sort of thing. So it became pretty beneficial, really, in terms of equipment.
Yeah, that is awesome, and I think that's where you got all the knowledge, or a lot of the knowledge that you have on not only bows, but kinetic energy and different broadheads that you're using in arrow setups and that type of thing. And there's a lot of questions we have here. So without further ado, we're going to give away that pack of Heart Attack arrows at the end of the program here for the last person who asks a question. But Brad, I'm going to let you go first, and we're going to just go round robin here with Bob.
Okay, the first one is from Scott Brumfield from Louisiana, it looks like. And his question is, when the moment of truth presents itself with a big buck, what would you recommend to do or not to do to remain calm enough to get it done?
drink heavily. No, actually, it seems to me that, before I answer this, I'll tell you this. Even today, when I get ready to shoot a doe, my leg starts quivering. So do you ever get over being excited or nervous? I don't think you do. But what I do when I see a good deer or a deer I want to shoot now is I don't look at the face anymore. I don't look at the antlers or whatever. I look at their body posture, and I just try to pick a spot and focus on a spot and go through my pre-shot routine, which is, pick a spot, come to anchor, and follow through on your shot, and don't drop your bow arm so you can watch that arrow fly over his back. But you just kind of have to go through your own pre-shot routine, and that comes with hunting a lot and also practice on the range, And one of the things that I found for myself when I practice, number one, I shoot broadheads almost exclusively in practicing. But the other thing I do is I don't shoot a lot of arrows at once. I shoot one arrow at the target, and then I walk over and I pull it out of the target and walk back. And I try to replicate the same scenarios that I would get shooting at game. If I'm tree stand hunting, I try to shoot sitting down. I try to turn my body crooked. All that kind of stuff we do when we're actually shooting a game. I think that helps a lot.
That is, and that's excellent advice. It doesn't matter, like you said, if you're hunting a grizzly bear or a whitetail, if you focus basically on the job at hand, if you focus on that kill zone, I think that's the best advice you can give to anybody, because it helps. Let's face it, that adrenaline is just taking over your body, and you got to do something to calm yourself down.
And you don't want to shoot between the antlers, do you?
I do sometimes. But.
Me too.
For me, it seems like the more I practice, the more confidence I get. So literally, when I finally come to the moment where I pull back my bow, that is probably the most relaxed I am, because I know, the rest is going to be kind of automatic. But I get nervous before I pull back my bow, trying to make sure the animal doesn't see you, as you're doing through that process. So.
Well, I agree with Brad. If I can get drawn, I'm good.
Yeah.
Bob, Brad taught me this tip a long, long time ago, but do you do the same thing where you practice at much farther distances than you would actually shoot?
Oh, sure. In fact, when I come to camps, people look at my bow and they go, my goodness, what are all those sight pins for? And I have pins actually on my bow set 20 to 90 yards and 10-yard increments. And I practice a lot at 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 yards. And do I want to shoot at an animal that far? Absolutely not. But you find when you start shooting 70 yards that any little quirk in your form or your bow's tune or whatever will make those arrows fly out of the kill zone. And so you learn to really maintain your form. And then when you get into 30 yards or 20 yards, my goodness, the kill zone looks like it's the size of a basketball. How can you miss it? So practicing long distance will help you make short shots for sure.
And it sure is a humbling experience when you're shooting at a block at like 70 or 80 yards, and you do something stupid, you flinch, or you drop your bow arm like you're talking, and you miss that entire block. It's like, oh my God. So it really makes you focus on the form.
A lot of these.
I'll tell you where it's serious for me is I shoot out here in the desert in Arizona, and if you miss the target, your arrow's destroyed. There goes $10.
There's $10, maybe more, maybe 13, 14. All Bob's tips, by the way, are in the Whitetail Archery column of Deer and Deer Hunting. Check that out every issue. Bob comes up with some great ideas. I'm sorry, we renamed it. It's Bow Shop. We used to call it Whitetail Archery. It's the Bow Shop column in Deer and Deer Hunting. Bob has done a great job with that. Next question comes from Mike Clare from Wisconsin. And this is an interesting question. Mike wants to know, Bob, he says, I seem to shoot 3 inches or so low on a 20-yard shot when he's shooting at last light. He says he wears progressive lens glasses when he's hunting, and he wonders if that has something to do with his problem for missing low.
Well, let me say this, and I don't know what the exact answer is, but I also have bad eyes and I wear glasses. And I normally wear bifocal lenses because I'm very nearsighted. And what I've learned for myself is that when I hunt, I only wear my single vision glasses, which are correcting my vision for long distance. And that way, it doesn't matter what my head position is. When I'm at full draw, I get the same picture as if I weren't wearing lenses or didn't need any correction. I find when I wear my bifocals that I have to move my head up and down like an owl, and my sight pin looks different depending on what position my head's at, looking through those progressive lenses, and I never could figure out how to do that. And I've tried, believe me, for years to be able to hunt with my bifocals, but I just can't. So I would suggest just try wearing your single vision glasses and just correct for one part of your vision, which is your distance vision, and I think that will help you.
It's a good tip. Good tip.
Yeah. Yeah, I got another question for you. This one's from Greg Singleton from Virginia. It says, Bob, how can the average bow hunter like myself tell when it's time to change the bowstring? Is there a recommended frequency for each different type of string material and cam setup, or is the recommendation more generic? I'm asking because I brought a used bow and it shoots great, but the string is obviously not new, and I wanted to make sure that it doesn't break on me. I think the cost of a new string and tune-up is around $150. Any advice you can give me would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, let's go back in time a little bit. Way back when, like 10 or 15 years ago, bowstrings, like all things archery equipment, were not nearly as technical as they are today. Today's bowstrings are fabulous, and they will last for years if they don't get frayed or worn or something. You know, if you're a big-time tournament shooter and you're shooting 1,000 or 2,000 arrows a year, well, you're going to have to change a string. But for most of us, your bowstring should last you for 4 or 5 seasons, I would think, if it's not frayed or you know, cut or something. If you have a bow that's 5 years or older, if it's a used bow, what I would suggest is that you just go put on an aftermarket string and get it done. If you think you're going to keep that bow for another 3 or 4 years, because then you won't ever have to worry about your string. And it'll be pre-stretched, and you only have to shoot, a couple, 3, 4 dozen arrows. It'll be right where it's going to be. You'll be able to tune and shoot, and you won't ever have to worry about it again.
That's good advice.
Great advice. Bob, what do you recommend for strings? Would you recommend for a guy who doesn't do it himself, just take that to the pro shop?
Absolutely. You know, and even though that I play with bows a lot, there are some things that I'm going to do at a pro shop because I don't have a professional bow press at my home anymore. And you really need a bow press if you're going to change strings or that kind of thing. So anytime that you need to do that kind of thing, go to the local pro shop, have them put the string on. At the same time, have them tie a loop for you. Make sure it's lined up right with your arrow rest. Just have them look over your bow and make sure that everything's good to go. Because one thing I've noticed about bows, too, if you shoot them a lot, all those little screws and things, they like to kind of vibrate loose. And next thing you know, something's not exactly right. So I really like to go over my bows with a pro once a year before the season starts, just to make sure everything's good to go.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice, because you never know. You never know. Those guys are trained experts. They're going to be able to pick something out and tell you what needs to be replaced. All right, let's go to the next question. James Gray. James from New York. And James asks, Dear Bob, when entering bow hunting, he's first entering bow hunting, would you recommend he starts with a top-end bow, like a Matthews Helium, or a lower-end bow, like a bargain price bow?
Well, here's my advice. If you're going to be serious about bow hunting, get the best bow that you can afford. That being said, today's mid-range bows, like the Matthews Missions, for example, are tremendous products, and they shoot extremely well. And for most of us, that's really all a guy needs. But I think the most important thing for a guy that's looking for a new bow is to go to a pro shop and shoot as many bows as you can shoot. Make sure that they fit you properly, the draw length's right and so on, and the draw weight, and just shoot them and feel them. And you're going to have one bow that you just go, man, that thing really feels good to me. And it doesn't matter what brand it is, really. If you like it, it's probably going to be pretty good, and you're going to be confident with it, and you shoot it well.
That's the exact same advice I always tell all my buddies. They're always asking us, because we're in the industry, which bow should I get? And I tell them, go down, shoot them all, whichever one you like, buy it. It's a good bow.
Well, the other thing, too, is I say the same thing, but I said if you have a decent pro shop, those guys are going to be more than happy. They'll let you shoot every bow every model that they have, because they want you to be happy, because they want you to come back. So you could shoot probably 4 or 5 different brands of bows in one stop, and maybe one fits you better than the another one.
See, for us at the ATA show, Bob, I can't get Dan out of the new bow area shooting all the new bows.
I could spend the entire show at the bow.
I know.
But, you know, it's like when people ask me, what kind of girls do you like, blondes, brunettes, or redheads? And, of course, the answer is yes.
All of the above.
All right, I got a question for you. This one's from Lance Matson out of Michigan. It says, how would you suggest calling either sex of deer in after the rut? Then he says he just hunts along a small river at the edge of a swamp, which is along where they bed. All the food is now farmed. He says he sees plenty of signs at the bait pile that he has, but he doesn't see any deer. From does, not a lot much. 7 a.m. to 10:30, 3:30 to dark. He's only seen a couple deer, and that's it. Any advice?
Oh my goodness, how do you tell somebody to hunt their own farm?
Yeah.
If you've never been there. But generally speaking, for me, this time of year, it's about two things: food and water. The bucks are going to go into that little lull period, you know, after they've rutted themselves crazy and they're tired and they want to lay down. But then maybe a doe and estrus is going to come by and they're going to get a smell, or they're going to go out and look for that. But they've got to eat. And when it gets cold and it's after the main rut, they're going to go to the food, man. And I would say if you've got high caloric food sources nearby, you know, check those out and set up between a bedding area and that food source, depending on what your sign tells you, of course. And that's what I would do. That's where I'd spend my time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you know you're on private land and you can control some of the food, you know, put your food plot in. I mean, that's the time to do it. When I strategize my plantings in the spring, I literally decide what I'm going to plant for early season food source, what I'm going to hunt over during the rut, and then my late season food sources. They're all different, you know, and you got to really plan that out. So if I know I'm going to hunt late season, I'm going to definitely have the food for them.
You got to have
well,
the food.
and if you also are a leaser or you have permission to hunt somebody's place where they grow corn, if you can buy or beg or borrow or whatever and ask that farmer to please leave some corn standing for you so you can hunt in December, you're going to be good.
Yeah, and the beauty of the late season stuff that a lot of people don't realize is, you know, if you have the preferred food source, you can pull deer in for miles.
Right.
You know, so you're not only hunting, you know, your localized deer that were there, you're pulling in deer from a couple miles away, and you're going to get some big deer in there.
And you're going to see deer you've never seen before.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I have a place that I've been able to hunt in southwest Kansas for quite a few years now, and I like to hunt there during the rut because, of course, during the rut you never know what's going to happen. Deer come from everywhere, but you can't really pattern them. Literally all the good deer that I've killed in this place, and I've killed 4 bucks, you know, 150 to 170 in the last 5 years, have all been after the rut when it's really cold and they got to come to eat. Yep. And they're coming.
I know you've hunted Kansas a lot, Bob. Is that your favorite late season destination?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it yet.
I know you've hunted Kansas quite a bit. Is that your favorite late season destination, or you have another spot?
Well, it's just a place that I have permission to hunt, and I can drive there from my house. I can be there in a day, and so I can hunt there. But I've also spent some time in Illinois during the late season around the cornfields, and boy, oh boy, it can be really good. And also I've had a place over by Cedar Rapids in Iowa that I hunted a couple of times in January, and man, oh man.
Yeah,
if you could stand
those
the
are
10,
the
if
ticket
you could
spots
stand the,
for
if
late
you could
season
stand the
hunting.
10 below, you could find them.
Yeah.
Good places to hunt. Let's go to Randall Wilhite from Oklahoma. Randall asks, Dear Bob, blinds made for both bow and rifle. What are your opinions on these? Which ones are functional and quiet, and should he, and require the least amount of maintenance?
Okay. Today's ground blinds, and I do a little ground blind hunting, and today's ground blinds are so good. You know, that the materials are strong. You can set them up so they're nice and taut and they don't make a lot of noise in the wind. And they're big enough that a bow hunter can get in there and actually draw his bow without worried about hitting the wall or whatever. 2 things that I would say about hunting out of a blind. Number 1, that thing has to be dark inside. And when I say dark, it's hard for a lot of people to sit in a blind and not be able to see 360 around them. But you need to close all the windows and all the doors as tight as you can close them, and only have a hole out there where you're going to shoot, and that's it. And you might have a little peephole that you can peek around to the side every now and then just because you can't stand it. But if that thing's not dark inside and you're not dressed totally in black with your face painted or a face mask on or something, believe me, the deer will see you. Mm-hmm. And if they do, it's over. You know, the other thing that I think people that like to hunt in blinds and hunt the late season, you have to be really careful because all that commercial blind material will freeze on you and get really brittle and really, really noisy. And so you have to be able to make sure that that thing is set taut and that you're not going to touch anything on it. And the other thing is you've got those little screen mesh windows that people shoot through, and I still don't like to shoot through those myself. And so I keep the windows open to shoot through, but I try to make them as tiny as possible so the doggone deer aren't going to see me, because they will see you.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Never thought about it. I just learned about this in Iowa this week. You know, you get one of those blinds, you open up all the windows because you want to see, but those deer might not actually see you, but they notice that window's open.
Oh yeah.
And they're going to come in much more alert, and they might smell you. So some really great advice. Just keep a really small shooting window.
The other thing I learned with ground blinds is however you're going to hunt out of that ground blind, like Bob leaves his window open a little bit, that's how I leave the blind. I mean, so that it looks the same to that whitetail every time it sees it.
And one other thing I might mention about blinds is when a guy sets the blind, you need to chop down all that little brush and stuff that's on the floor that'll be around your feet, so that if you move your feet or whatever, you don't make any noise.
Yeah.
You can't make any doggone noise in that blind.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is you've done it, it can be done, especially bow hunting.
Yeah. It's just so easy with a bow, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot more comfortable to be able to sit down, sprawl out, keep all your stuff there in front of you, rather than, especially like now when it's cold, you're sitting up in a little tree stand. You can't move, you can't do anything.
I think the view when you're on the ground and you're shooting one from the ground is just absolutely cool when they're coming in and they're at eye level with
right
you.
There in front of you. Yeah.
It's a neat feeling.
Oh boy, it's fun. In fact, I'm getting ready here in my neighborhood. We hunt the little coos whitetails, and I have a little spot up here in the mountains where I set a blind in a little saddle area that they travel a lot, and they're starting to rut here now. And so we put down some scent trails and hang some scent bombs and just sit in that little blind. And these little deer are afraid of their own shadow. And when they show up, it's just like, oh boy, it's very, very exciting, very fun.
Sounds cool. Hey, the next question I have is from Casey Beard out of Texas. He says, what are some of the best things to start thinking about or doing in preparation for next season?
Oh boy. Okay. There's so much to do if you're done hunting for the year. Number one, when you store your equipment, I'd like to turn the poundage down on my bows quite a bit so that the limbs and the strings aren't stressed and so on and whatever. I lubricate my axles, my wheels. I make sure everything's tight. Just kind of give your bow a little tune-up. Wax your string. Make sure everything's good. I like to store it in a place that's nice and dark and dry, so it's not damp, so that things won't mildew or rust or whatever. You want to make sure all your screws are oiled, because those little screws will rust, of course. Check your sight pins. Check everything over, so that when you get your bow out next spring, you can turn your poundage back up, and then you have to paper tune your bow and make sure it's all ready to go again before you even start shooting. But to me, that's the most important thing. The other thing that I like to do is with my broadheads, especially those that have been in my quiver, if there's any moisture on them, they might rust as well. So you can store those in, sometimes I'll wrap them in a paper towel that has like corn oil that you use for cooking, and that helps keep them from rusting and keeps them lubricated, and it doesn't affect them one bit. So you just want to check everything over and store it where it's nice and quiet and dry and dark, so everything will be good to go when you get them out next spring.
Makes sense.
Great, perfect. All right, Bob, last question for you. And this is going to be the lucky winner of the Heart Attack arrows here, Carbon Express from Dick's. This is coming from Ron. Gosh, Ron, I'm going to butcher your name. Ron Strusen from Ohio. And it's very a good question considering he won the arrows. He said, Dear Bob, I'm considering changing my arrow length, but I'm not sure about what the outcome will be. He shoots a 28-inch draw length now, and he wants to switch to 100-grain broadheads. He said, basically, his question is this going to affect penetration and other flight differences by shortening his arrows?
Okay, anytime you change anything in your equipment, it's going to change everything. And so the question then becomes, will that affect your ability to kill a deer? Fortunately for us, whitetail deer aren't really that hard to kill if you hit them in the right place. They don't take a huge amount of kinetic energy to get a double pass-through. I'm also a 28-inch draw length guy. I shoot a 28.5-inch arrow. And I shoot that arrow because I shoot fixed blade broadheads or replaceable blade heads. And so that way when I draw, I don't have to worry about the blades hitting my riser when I'm at full draw. I find that that's a really good combination for me. 100 grain or 125 grain broadheads, really I think what you're worried about is two things. One is, do you have enough front of center balance in your arrow so that it's going to fly well? And the other is, are you shooting enough arrow weight to make sure that you're going to get enough penetration? For me, I'm not a real light arrow guy. I would call myself a medium heavy arrow. Even when I whitetail hunt, I like to shoot an arrow that weighs about 400 grains, and I pull 70 pounds, and that gives me about somewhere between 68 and 72 foot-pounds of kinetic energy. Well, I shot that through a bull elk this year, and so that's plenty of kinetic energy. So I really don't like it to see a guy, even whitetail hunting, go below 350 grains of total arrow weight, especially at a 28-inch draw length, because you might sacrifice a little penetration. And that's more important than shooting blistering arrow speed. Is if you're tree stand hunting, you're not going to shoot more than 30 or 40 yards max, and you have a rangefinder, right? So you're going to know the distance. It's more important to be able to drive that arrow all the way through than it is to shoot like super flat. So.
Good advice, good advice. Well, thank you, Bob, and thanks to Ron for that last question. We want to thank you again, Bob. It was always a pleasure talking with you. I know we're going to see you here again in January, but I think between now and then you're probably going to be hunting, so I hope you have good success out there.
Yeah, I'll be out tomorrow.
All right.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
Bye. You know, I could sit there and talk with Bob all day, just like all of our guests, Brad. But you know, Bob's one of those guys that, you know, he'll admit that it's not a exact science, but the stuff that he's learned, and it's a lot like the stuff that we've learned, it's trial and error to get to what actually works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's trying new stuff all the time, and combinations of arrows, and he's one of those guys that tinkers with everything. So that's what makes it so interesting. That's why he knows so much about it.
He shoots expandables. He shoots fixed blades. He shoots fast bows. He'll tune his bows down sometimes. It depends upon what you're hunting.
Yeah.
So I mean that's a good thing. We have a couple more questions, but before we get to those, I know you're going to be able. These are slam dunk questions. That's why I want to ask you before we go today. Want to remind everybody of the warehouse sale of the century. Do not miss this. It is once in a century. 80% off of all books. If you want to get something for Christmas, if you pick names for Christmas and you want to get a great gift for the deer hunter on your list, check it out. Up to 80% off at shopdeerhunting.com, all books. And as I said earlier in the program, we have a ton of great items in the store that might not be on sale, but they're less than $15. There's the toll-free number if you already know what you want. The toll-free number is there. You can call and order, or you can go to shopdeerhunting.com and order it, or go to shopdeerhunting.com, find out what you want, and then call in. I know we have a lot of customers who would just rather not order online, who want to actually talk to somebody and call or have questions. You can use that toll-free number right there. But everything at shopdeerhunting.com starts today, goes through Friday, up to 80% off of all the books. We have all the great deer hunting books, Charlie Alsheimer's books, John Ozoga's books, Lee and Tiffany's new book, the Scott Laseth book. I can't even mention them all. The other neat thing, I'm not going to mention all of them, but check this out. This is the second year we've done this. It is the page-a-day calendar from Deer and Deer Hunting. And what's really cool is it's only $13.99. You put that on your desk every single day. It's got a color photo of a deer and a fun little fact. Get one for yourself, get one for a friend, get one for the person on your gift list. These are really, really cool. I can't say enough about that. Okay, Brad, couple questions. Let's hit 2 questions for you here, because I know you're going to be, like I said, slam dunks for you. Mark Landreth from Utah. Hey, I think that's the first time we've had anybody from Utah. He wants to know, he's just getting back into bow hunting. He wants to know if he should use a peep sight.
Yeah, you know, some of the archery sites out there right now say that you don't need a peep sight. I just, you know, I'm going to put a peep sight on every bow that I have. And I can tell you this kind of funny little story, because it happened to our TV producer. He was using the IQ bow sight, and, you know, it says on there you don't need a peep, and you really don't if you're using it correctly. And I told him, I said, when you're excited out in the field, I said it's so much nicer to have that peep because then you know you're anchoring in the right spot. You're going to be able to see your whole IQ sight and make that shot. Well, it happened to him that 155-inch deer comes by. He's excited. He anchors a little bit in the wrong spot, takes a shot, shoots, you know, a foot over the deer's back. And I think that's why you shoot with a peep. It just is another point of contact for you to be able to shoot. You know, there's multiple methods. If this is my bow right here, I don't like the rubber tubing. I hate the rubber tubing. There's so many peeps now that go in your string that just get tied in there, and they rotate as your string comes by. And with a bow press, and I have a bow press in my office, or you can take it to a shop, you can get perfect rotation on that peep every time. So it pulls back, and it lines up perfectly. And, you know, I would not hunt without a peep.
Second nature, and I think I started shooting that tubeless peep after you said it a few years ago. The tip that what we're showing here from the pro shop, JR from our local sports shop, he got me to go to a really big peep a few years ago, and that really helped me. It's a tubeless peep, but it's the biggest aperture. Don't ask me the size of the aperture, but it's the biggest. I think it's a G5. It's the biggest aperture that's made. But for me, it's second nature now. I love to line up with that peep as well.
Me too.
That's a good question from John there. And let's see. I think I'm sorry. The next Don is the last question. Don Nelson. I don't think it's the basketball coach. I think he's just a deer hunter from Florida. And Don wants to know. Let's see, Brad. What do you recommend for your bow? A single pin that you can move, a single pin by itself, or multiple pins for different yardages?
You know, I think it matters on the individual because you can talk to everybody and everybody likes a different combination.
Everybody says something different. Yeah.
Me personally, I like to have a multi-pin. You know, I'm like Bob Robb. I don't have a 90-yard pin, I have an 80-yard pin. So I go all the way through from 20 to 80 yards. Why do I like that? Because I really don't have to think about it. All I have to do is think about where that animal is. On my, you know, if I laser it at 70 yards, I know it's the second from the bottom. That's where I'm going to, you know, that's the pin I'm going to use to practice. The people that like the single pin that's adjustable, I mean, they just don't want the extra obstructions in there from your other pins. It's a clear, you know, view of your pin and the animal for that fact. I just don't want to be caught in that moment of truth when the animal's coming in, he's at 30, and I'm going to put my 30-yard on there, and I pull back, and all of a sudden he turns at me, and now he's 15 yards, and then have to do a little Kentucky windage. If I shoot my multi-pin, I know, you know, I'm shooting
exactly
my top
where to
pin.
aim.
Yeah, so that's the only difference there. The people that shoot a single pin, it really depends on your range, how far you're going to shoot. You know, today's bows, if I was going to shoot a single pin and I'm only shooting out to 30 yards, or even say 40 yards is my maximum, I'm going to sight it in at 30 yards.
Right.
And that pin's going to be dialed in perfect at 30 yards. And I know if it's 20, I'm going to aim for the heart. And I know if it's 40, I'm going to aim a little bit higher in the chest cavity. So you can do anything. It's what you're really comfortable with. You know, so, you know, shoot what you like, I guess, and just
Great
know
advice.
how to use it.
You know, and that's, I know guys like that, that are just deer hunters. They're not archery, you know, tournament guys or anything like that. And they can really be restrained and say, I'm only shooting at a deer 30 or less. If that's you, you only need one pin.
Yeah.
And that makes it really simple because, you know, if he's 30 yards, one pin, you're done. If he's beyond that, you're not shooting. Or like you said, 40. I know some guys that will actually use 2 pins, but and then, you know, you get into, like you say, for preference, you get into the stack pins versus, you know, the other types of pins. It's really what you're used to, what you're comfortable with. But if you're not really veteran shooter, say keep it simple. You know,
yeah.
go with what's best for you, and then once you can start practicing a lot, add pins. And the only reason I don't have more than 4 pins is I have yet to get that sight that's got 5-6 pins on it. But I'm going to be. That's my aspirations for this year is to start practicing longer because, like you said, when you get those 30-yard shots, my goodness, it's a slam dunk.
It's a bunny.
So awesome. All right. Well, thank you to everybody for joining us today. Again, please check out the warehouse sale of the century at Shop Deer. It's going on today through Friday. You're going to find a lot of great stuff. But until next week, I'm Dan Schmidt along with Brad Rux. Thanks for joining us today on Deer Talk Now.